So thank you everyone for joining the KT session. This is the pre-KT session before the alpha, and alpha, just for everyone's reference, alpha is starting from 30th of April and it will run till 15th of May. There is a slight change in the GA date of EM 9.1. It is delayed by some 10 days, so most probably we'll have GA somewhere around 12th of June. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Robert.
Okay.
Over to you, Robert.
Thank you. Which one is? Okay. Thanks, Yeli, for sharing that.
So you want to start with the workload content type? This is the first feature you want to start with?
Yeah. So for workload content type, we found that we weren't previously getting the data properly for workload CTs through the intraday API because it was not matching the requirements properly. So we changed the way that we import data when there is a workload CT, but we have to indicate on EEM what the workload CT is. So if you want to go to the next screen, Yeli. In the optional configurations for the contact type, there is a checkbox now in this column. You can see all the blue check marks for workload. So whatever CTs are workload CTs, you just have to check them. And then as we continue to import the requirements for those CTs, we will make sure we are importing the revised requirements and not trying to use the intraday that has inaccurate calculations. But that is the only change that needs to be made. We do have a list of customers that have workload CTs or had kind of a workaround that we had in place that I will make sure to be sharing out with the team. I will also, for the cloud team, be putting together a short informational item to share with customers prior to upgrade. So when we schedule an upgrade with them, we can share with them the instructions for doing this, because it is going to turn off the old configuration for this one. So there might be a handful of customers that would be impacted, and we don't want that to be the case. And so we're going to give them an instruction of how to update these. Okay. Questions about those?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jesus.
Yeah, so are these gonna be checked by default?
Nope.
All the cities?
Nope, they will be unchecked by default to keep things as they are today. So anyone that has the current workaround, we will have to make sure these get checked. Anyone else that has workload CTs will have to come in and check these themselves.
Okay, is this going to change anything else in EM in terms of additional columns, backlog columns, or anything else?
Nope.
That we see in EM?
Nope. The only change is just how we pull in the requirements. So we're pulling in revised requirements instead of intraday requirements. So that is the main change. For non-workload CTs, when you look at a future day, the intraday requirements are just the revised requirements. It's not until day of that starts to change. So this shouldn't impact anyone else, but that's how it works, just so you're all aware. Other questions? I think I heard someone else speaking up.
Yeah, Robert, would you know what happened
if
would you know what happens if I check a box for a CT that is not a workload CT?
It should not. It just changes the way we're pulling requirements. So performance-wise, it is not as optimal to pull in the revised requirements because it's a bigger API with more data, which is why we were using the intraday in the first place. So it doesn't scale as well to do that for everything, but which is why we want to limit it to just the ones that are specifically workload CTs. But it shouldn't break anything. I need to check and see for current day if it changes. I think it will still change for current day. Or I think there would be an impact for current day that it would not be continuously updating the intraday. But let me double check on that to see if we do it that way. So that's a good question, Hugo.
Robert, go ahead, Ugo.
So, because it could even be a potential solution for that issue. You know how we have this issue where for the 24/7 CTs current day, if the task is scheduled right at midnight, then when we pull the intraday, it has already changed, and then it's incorrect. So if we make it pull from the revised, then that wouldn't be an issue anymore for the 24/7 CTs. But yeah, we don't know how that would impact the actual intraday that we import for the current day.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll check on that piece, but otherwise, I think it could probably fix some of those 24/7 ones that we're getting it at a weird time.
Okay.
So,
Sorry, Juan.
Yeah, there is any plan in the future just to grab this configuration from WFM? Because if the data is there, we will avoid the human error going and selecting what's workload and what's not. Instead of that, if we just get it from WFM, it should be easier.
So we looked to see if there was a way to get that from WFM. There's no existing API that has this information. It's not that we couldn't create one, we would have to do so. But that's one piece of it. The second piece is, as Hugo mentioned, if there's anything else that needs to be marked this way in order to be set up, we don't want to have that locked into just workload CTs. So for instance, those 24/7 groups, if it makes more sense to have them in EEM marked as workload CTs to have more accurate data, we would still have that option this way. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, perfect.
And just to mention that any change that is done in this screen will be also captured in the admin report.
Yep.
So it's covered as well.
Okay. Yeah, we can probably move to the next one. Okay. So PTO group allotment. Like I said, this is just an additional check that we can add to the net staffing check and the personal balance check for agents that are using paid time off. And again, this is just with paid time off because we don't map the unpaid codes within EEM to any balance within WFM, so we can't check it that way. Just because it's marked as paid time off in EEM does not mean it needs to actually be a paid code. That just basically means that we're checking WFM for a balance. And in this case, we would check both the personal balance and the group allotment. So it is not separate from net staffing. This is in addition to net staffing. If you happen to have a back office group that doesn't, or just a group that does not have an accurate forecast or accurate net staffing, you can basically open it up so that it would allow all time off requests to be submitted as green, and then have this check so that it would just be using only the group allotment. So if you want to go to the next one, Yeli, when an agent goes in and submits it, right, it will do that check for group allotment, and you can see there's a column that shows the group allotment balance. And so they could see, for that middle one, there's not sufficient group allotment to allow it, so they couldn't submit it. They'd have to delete that in order to submit the other two. Or they'd have to, get approval for that. So if you go to the next one, I believe there's one more screen that shows. Oh yeah, if there's some balance but insufficient, it shows that icon. And then if you go one more, I believe we show the admin setting for this. Oh, I guess we don't have it. So in the time off option, there is just the option to apply group allotment to time off. So it is just it's in the client admin where we have what is it, the WFM PTO is, I believe, the setting that turns on the PTO balance. Right next to that, there's another checkbox for applying group allotment. So it is at the program level that you turn it on. You can't do it for a smaller group than that.
So it's
my
Robert,
apologies,
it's
Robert. Sorry, sorry about that. Sorry, I just wanted to confirm, and maybe this is probably something that's been answered in other sessions that I've been to, but do we still have this issue where even if the request, if it's not possible because of the available balances that a person has, and when we enable the PTO balance, does the system still allow for that request to go through, or will it just not allow it based on how much balance you have? Is that something that EM is now controlling? Sorry if I am very late to the party.
No, it's
as far as that
still
goes, Robert.
it is still there's no wait list in here, if that's what you're asking. So there's no
Yeah.
allowing the submission if there's not sufficient group allotment. So if you're applying group allotment, there has to be sufficient group allotment. There's not the ability to add to wait list. That's a future enhancement that we're looking at.
All right. Yeah.
But
so it will tell you, but it will still let you submit something.
No.
Like will tell you, or
if there's no balance, whether it's personal balance or group allotment balance, you are unable to even submit it within the EM. Today.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah. And then Hugo, I think you had the other question.
I think it was Ian.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry, Ian. Sorry.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, so from an admin perspective, it's either net staffing or it's allotments, or it's both. Or
so there's no just. So the only way you can do just allotments is if you never want to use net staffing, and then you basically set it up to have the additional group allotment check, but you would just have to set the net staffing template or to basically be always green for time off.
Yeah.
And then it would use group allotments effectively only. There's not a way right now. This is a later phase that we're looking at. There's not a way right now to just have without doing that kind of workaround where you set the net staffing to always allow it. There's not a way to just apply group allotment.
Okay.
So that means that potentially for a back office group that is not forecasting, we still need kind of the dummy forecaster to make it green and allow the time of requests, right?
Yeah.
For now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that was the main part of this step in the process. So there's more we want to do with group allotment. But this phase, it's primarily unblocking a lot of those back office groups that just have no option because they can't trust their forecasts, so they can't use self-service. This would allow them to still use self-service, but then have the restrictions coming based on that group allotment.
Okay. And just double checking, if I do not enable the time of allotments, I can still do this just looking at the personal balances, right?
Yeah, so the personal, it'll still work like today with the personal balances. And they have to have both. If this is turned on, they have to have both personal and group balance. If it's not turned on, it's just still the personal balance.
Got it.
The other caveat I would put with this is if you are going to work for a back office group with this, you should have no unpaid codes associated because obviously if you're setting everything to all green, you don't want to have unpaid codes getting approved against absolutely nothing.
Right.
So just something to consider. And again, I know it's a little bit limited because it's at the program level you turn this on, but the main reason was to unblock some of those back office groups. But, okay. Other questions about this? All right, so self-service bulk association. So obviously in 9.0, we added a lot more self-service templates to consider with the date range and current day templates, and also date range for the current day. So rather than having one template that applies for the entirety of a CT site always, you can have multiple templates for each CT site for current day and multiple templates for each CT site for future day. To alleviate a lot of the work on that, we added the option to do bulk association. So if you jump to the next one, Yeli, what we can do here is, when you want to update and do a bulk association, you can select the CTs that you want to account for, do the bulk assign, and if you go to the next one again, Yeli, you can do either current or future. Hugo, I'm just muting you for a second because I was getting an echo. So you can do either current or future day, and you can't do both at the same time. You have to do one or the other, but then you do have the option to add whatever you're associating. So you see that at the bottom, the parts that you're trying to do the bulk with. You can add it to either the bottom, the top, or fully replace the existing associations. So if you just needed to add something for a holiday that's coming up, you could just go, add to top. It becomes the highest priority for just the date range that it covers. So, we have Memorial Day coming up here soon in the US. I don't know where else that applies, but you could basically, for Memorial Day, set a template that blocks time off for all of Memorial Day, for instance, if you wanted to assign that to all CT site combinations you want and just have it go to the top. So only on that one day, it takes the highest priority. Then it still keeps all the other associations in place. If you wanted to change the generic template, you would add that to the bottom, and then you could do it that way. When you're doing bulk assignment, there is a restriction that you cannot do no end date unless you're doing the replace all existing templates, because we only allow one template to have no end date. And so the only way to guarantee that for all of the CT site combinations you're associating with is for it to fully replace all templates. So if you're fully replacing all of them, you can do one with no end date. Otherwise, you do have to set end dates for all of them. The other thing to be aware of is this, for current day, this will take up to, I believe, 30 minutes to take effect and apply, because as we import new data, we recalculate and we are reapplying these templates at that time. For future day, it could take up to 24 hours. And again, it's just because of how we're doing that, how we're applying it. So if something needs to be done where it needs to take effect right away, I would recommend doing the regular association. If it's something for a future day where they're happy to wait until the next time we import the data, the bulk association will obviously be better. So customers will just need to plan accordingly. Questions?
Yeah, regarding the end date. So if you're not doing the replace template and you don't put an end date, do you get a warning?
Yes, it'll actually give you an error and tell you have to put an end date for it. Or I don't know, error warning, whatever you want to call it, but it doesn't let you submit it until you make the change. Okay. Okay. Other questions? All right. So then performance improvements, I'll let Yeli speak to this one.
Yeah, thank you. So as part of 9.1, we did work on different area to improve performance. I think that the biggest areas were the number of agents that we currently support. As you must know, until 9.1, the limitation was 10K for one EEM instance, 10K named agents, about 4K concurrency. And again, as part of 9.1, we did run PSR, we did some performance improvement to allow a bigger instances to support 15K and 20K. There are some upscaling that is involved. So if a customer would like to have more than 15K on the system, there are specific instances that would ask for it. Mainly the upscale was done on the RTS piece. In addition to the instance sizing, we did some improvement on the rules, some improvements on the DI, the integration between WFM and EEM. I don't have here the list of all the different improvements that were done, but as I mentioned, it's mostly focused around the rules and the integration. Do you have any questions? Okay. I think that's it.
Sorry for the hiccup at the beginning there, everyone, but no, looks like we were able to get through everything. And I guess if there's any other questions,
Hey, Robert.
we have some time now. Yeah, go ahead. You go.
Yeah, sorry for the feedback earlier. I clicked on the wrong thing. So, yeah, I have a question back to the PTO part. So, we've been using this workaround lately where for the request absence, we map those certain activity codes to PTO to be able to check the balance that's valuable to certain customers like Taskas and Shopify and the others.
Yeah.
This would also affect that, right? If I check that box, it's going to go and check the time of allotments, which would be a problem for request absence because in request absence, you don't want to do that.
So one, it depends on the customer. I would think not, but technically in WFM, that is still tied to the same group allotment balance, right?
It is. But what I'm saying is in request absence, you would normally use that for sick time or personal time, which you take it regardless of the allotment, right? Because it's a last minute situation. So customers are looking to check the personal balance only. But as far as the capacity, well, it makes no sense to check capacity.
So yeah, let me check and see if that's applied to that request absence workaround as well.
Okay.
For that.
Yeah.
And
I know
question.
and I know it's a workaround, and we have been kind of cautioning customers like, hey,
yeah,
this works. It's kind of a workaround, but we're still working on truly implementing it as a feature. And I actually find another issue with that, and it is that it's not going to check the balance properly unless you map the activity code to work hours, which is problematic because then, you could run into issues with the minimum and maximum daily hours if you're using that by mapping those personal times to work hours. Just so you know, I know that's a separate topic, but.
Oh yeah, so if it's unpaid codes, you wouldn't want to do that. For paid codes, it makes for paid codes, it makes sense to do that because if you're using like paid vacation, right, you want that to count towards your weekly hours.
But not for unpaid, potentially.
But not for unpaid codes, and because our definition of paid is a little bit different than what WFM's is, and ours is basically it has a balance associated. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let me.
Okay.
I'll. Okay, so basically, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So the one that you just mentioned there was right. Will it apply for the request absence activity codes? And then the other question that you had was, does it?
For the second part, it's no. My first question earlier was about the checking the boxes for CTs that are not really workload. If it impacts.
Oh, if it impacts intraday, the current day,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Thank you, Robert.
All right. Okay. So I think that's it. We can conclude. There are no more questions.